What's going on, guys? It's Chris Kiku Kubiak from the podcast, actually doing my own thing today. I'm here interviewing the programming director of Pensacon himself, Stephen J. Wise. We're going to get into some conversation about how a convention is actually put on. Recent events in Houston and other cons have shed some light on how a con can go wrong. And some misconceptions about how conventions themselves are put on. So, Steve, how are you doing? Let's start off with that. You look good.
Hey, Chris. Thank you. I'm doing great.
Good deal. Good deal. Now, you've been the programming director for Pensacon for the past 2 years, correct?
Right. Yeah, this is my third year going into it. Now, I was with Pensacon from the beginning, but I was doing a different job the first year.
And what job was that?
I was running transportation, making sure that all the celebrities got from the airport to the hotel, back and forth, got where they were supposed to be, took care of like parking and trolleys and all that stuff, which I'm still kind of handling the trolleys because I never handed that off to anybody else.
So how did the programming director spot fall into your hands, or how did you grab it by the horns and wrestle it to the ground?
Well, the first year we had actually a lot more people on staff, and so the jobs were kind of split up a little bit more. Going into the second year, we had reduced the number of people, and so we all had to take on other responsibilities. So I was asked to handle the programming, and which entails scheduling and making sure that all the panels are where they're supposed to be, dealing with people that, not only the celebrity panels, but the people from the community that want to volunteer to run their own panels, and overseeing the moderators, dealing with the different venues that we have, which right now we're up to 5 venues going into 2017. So
we definitely have to spread it out in Pensacola for sure. So with the scheduling, actually, let's start really at the beginning of a convention. How far in advance do you have to plan Pensacon?
Oh, we're working on this for a solid year. I mean, it kind of starts for the following year before we actually have the event for the current year, because we're always looking ahead and seeing, okay, well, this person may not be appropriate for this year, but next year we want to bring that person in, looking at what we can do, in the future. So, there's a lot of talk going in, but really as soon as Pensacon happens and we're able to kind of wrap up the event and decompress for a week or two, we jump right into it.
Okay. So what's first, the guest or the venue?
Well, we have to know that we have a venue, and sometimes working out the details with that can be challenging. It's always kind of a give and take with the venues, but here in Pensacola, the Bay Center is really the only option for us to have to host the main portion of the event, and by that I mean like the vendor floor, housing the celebrities, having a certain amount of panels, doing the video gaming. Those are all things that have to be done at the Bay Center. There is no other facility that's large enough in Pensacola or the surrounding areas to be able to do all that.
Talking about the Bay Center, the first year that it was started by Mike Ensley, did they get the venue first, or did they see if some guests would be interested to coax maybe some interest by the Bay Center?
Well, it's a funny story, and Mike tells it better than I do, but essentially the first year he just wanted to have a one-day event over at the what's now the Pensacola Grand Hotel. It had been the Crown Plaza. They just changed their names. But in the Grand Ballroom there, he was just going to have a one-day event, maybe have 1 or 2 media guests at the most, to a bunch of comic book artists that he knows come in, and just for nerds to come and hang out. And he wasn't expecting more than a few hundred people maybe that would be be interested in it. And so he started talking with Ben Galecki, and they made arrangements with the hotel. And when they started putting feelers out to guests at that point, They also simultaneously put word out into the public, via Facebook, to see who would be interested. And he had thousands of people that responded. And suddenly it kind of dawned on him that this is going to be a bigger event than what he thought it was going to be. I mean, it really started off very, very humble. And he didn't want to bite off more than he could chew. Fortunately, we had some financial backing, and we were able to then look at the base center as a means to hold it there, because we knew that we were going to have the space. And it just grew and grew. And by that first year, I mean, when we first started opening up ticket sales, we were watching the ticket sales kind of slowly come in, and we were hoping for 5,000 people to purchase tickets.
Sure.
And we ended up with 11,000. So it far exceeded what our expectations were. And by the second year, we doubled that, and we're kind of maintaining 23,000 people in attendance. So, it's become something larger than what we intended. But to answer your question, it kind of happened organically. It was based on interest, based on other things that we looked at. We were taking a chance. I mean, there was a risk involved in going with the base center and going that big, but we didn't want to run into a situation where we would have just a tiny, tiny venue and thousands of people showing up. As it was, we had to close the doors on Saturday because the fire marshal said, nope, there's too many people in here.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it would be like if it was only at the hotel.
Very bad. Very, very bad, most likely. So with the exponential growth, how many hours a day do the main Pensacola or Pensacon staff work?
Well, it depends on the time of year, really. I mean, right now
Sure.
we're in kind of a slow period. I mean, it's still, I mean, we're putting in as many hours as we can, but we're not killing ourselves. But come September, October, it starts getting busier, and we start really, really focusing on getting down to business. By January 1st, it's really difficult to have any days off. And as it gets, every day as it gets closer, you have no life whatsoever. And it's a team effort. We can't. We have so many people on staff, but we have to rely on volunteers also. And our volunteers so far have really stepped up to the plate and just done a phenomenal job.
That's my next question to you, is the volunteers. How many volunteers does Pensacon employ for every con every year?
Well, obviously they're volunteers, so we're not employing them per se. But,
but I mean, I don't. Do you volunteer? Like.
Basically, the way it works is around August, September, we put out the application on our website, and first we start looking for the team leads and team captains, which are the people that have utmost responsibility. We have our staff members that are paid, and then we have our volunteer admins, and those people have extreme responsibilities. And then the team captains have a little bit less responsibility, but they're focused on just different departments, if you will. And then we have our team leads that run the shifts and basically are responsible for the being down in the trenches. Then we have our regular volunteers that they come for a day, and they're able to get a couple a t-shirt and then a weekend pass, and they're able to enjoy the convention by working a 12-hour shift or 12 hours all put together. So and here again, to answer your question, we have in the neighborhood of 500 volunteers when all is said and done.
That's a lot of people.
That's not even counting the moderators, and which we had 17 moderators this year that were running the different panels, and people from the community that were donating their time to come in and doing different panels. That's a big portion of our program, and without people that step up to the plate and say, hey, you know what? I'm an expert at cosplay. I'm an expert at comic book movies. I'm an expert at writing or whatever the case might be, and I want to share my knowledge with the public. That's where, like I said, a lot of our programming comes from, and we wouldn't have a program if it wasn't for those people that stepped up to do this.
So it's a very symbiotic relationship between Pensacon and Pensacola.
Oh, absolutely. And you see this, which is very common in a lot of larger conventions, and even the smaller ones too, where you have a certain amount of volunteers. But I think Pensacon is unique to a certain degree because, you look at like Wizard World and any of the multiple cities that they take place in, they don't connect to the city. They just go to New Orleans or wherever the case might be. They inhabit the convention center or whatever the venue is for 3 days, and then they're gone. MegaCon in Orlando, there's several conventions that take place in Orlando, and let's face it, Orlando is a tourist city, and if it's not Disney or Universal, people kind of look the other way. MegaCon brings in 40 to 50,000 people every year, but there's no connection to the city there. DragonCon probably has a very large connection to the city. They take over 5 hotels plus other buildings, and they shut down the streets of the downtown area for that. And they have a parade that goes down the town.
DragonCon's very also much rooted in Atlanta. Like started there, people that organize it are from there.
Right, exactly. And that grew. That's been going on for 25 years, something like that. I don't know the exact figure, but for a very long time. And it started off just as literally a comic book convention with a bunch of comic book artists sitting in a room and people coming and signing, buying stuff from them. And it grew to be a massive, now 5-day event and just a 24-hour party. We kind of model ourselves after them to some degree because we have to do that campus style and spread out. And fortunately, the city of Pensacola has embraced that, and we have so much support. Everyone from the airport to all the bars and restaurants down on Palafox Street and the whole downtown area, and places like McGuire's, and just the list goes on. The Sanger Theater and the Rex Theater and the PLT. They see a benefit to it. And they benefit directly, but there's also a benefit to the city as a whole, and they want that, and it's become just a major event, not just for us, but for them downtown. So what, and like I said, that's rare. You don't see that much.
No, you don't, especially with. Most people who hopefully are watching this know about the scheduling conflict that happened right after the last one, and a lot of the city did rise up to support Pensacon, and
we were very grateful on that.
But going to back to the actual con,
sure.
What are some of the hardships of scheduling it? Obviously, there's some financial restrictions in getting some of the artists and some of the celebrities. I'm sure trying to go and get Robert Downey Jr. is not an easy task to do.
And that specifically would be an impossible task to do for us. The biggest challenge we have in booking people is the size of our facility, because when you're looking at signing on someone that is of a certain level or higher, and we're talking about like Patrick Stewart or William Shatner or any of the Avengers, for instance, people that are the headliners in major shows and movies, they require a certain amount of guarantee that they're going to make X number of dollars, and it varies from person to person. Well, we can't be assured that they're going to make that money if we can't bring a certain number of people through to sign autographs, or to get the celebrities to sign autographs for them, because it's just math. If they sell their autograph for $50, let's say, and then the higher people, it probably starts off there and goes higher. I know Adam West, I met him one time in Orlando, and he was selling his autograph for $80. And so if you're starting off with $50, let's say, and their guarantee is $40,000, well, how many $50 autographs do you need to sell in order to meet that $40,000? And for people who don't understand, basically a guarantee is saying, you know, we as a convention, we're guaranteeing you, the celebrity, that you're going to make that much money. And if you don't, and that's through selling autographs and selling photographs, and maybe some other things, you know, like we had Virginia Hay, who was just a wonderful person. She did a meditation class, and she sold tickets to that. So that goes into, you know, any monies that she may have as far as a guarantee. But we as the convention runners, we're responsible for the difference. So if, let's say, we have a guest that has a $10,000 guarantee and he only makes $5,000, we've got to come up with $5,000 to pay the person. And if they make over that, great, you know, they keep that money, they pocket it, and we're not, you know, as long as they reach that money, we're not responsible for that. And so we have to look at that as it's a risk. And, you know, if we feel confident that that particular person is going to be a hit here, we have no problem bringing them, because we know, hey, you know, you can be assured that you're going to make that money, and because of the number of people that come through. So basically, to boil it down, is if the venue is large enough, then we can bring large people. But currently, with the base center the size it is, we have to really think realistically and not book people that are going to be costing us money, because then we go out of business.
Well, I guess a good example of that from this last convention was Michael Rooker. He was in one of the main ballrooms, got so busy that he had to be moved out into his own section of hallway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rooker was very cool, and you know, we knew that he was going to do well. He did extraordinarily well, and here's the thing too, that he was able to engage his audience. I mean, he was constantly out there working the crowd. I mean, his panel, poor Julio, who was the moderator, Rooker grabbed the microphone from him, didn't even let him talk, and jumped out into the audience and was running around just doing his own thing. And people love that. You have other people who, you know, maybe aren't so outgoing, and they just kind of drift into the background, and then they don't make as many sales as they probably should. So it's you know, unless we've worked with people before, or if we have, you know, good idea from other conventions that they've been at, or people that have worked with them, it's a little bit of a gamble, because we don't know what the person is going to do. Katrina Law was another example. Where, you know, she's a, you know, kind of a minor celebrity, if you will, and no offense, Katrina, but you know, she's been on a couple shows, Arrow and Spartacus, and you know, not huge name. Most people don't really know who she is, but man, she was out on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, all the social media, just promoting the heck out of it, and she made a killing. She was also a lot.
She was a lot of fun to interact with. She was a lot of fun to interact with.
And she's very pretty too, so that kind of helps. But the fact is that, you know, she went out there. She wasn't just hiding behind her desk. She was engaging with people and interacting. And, you know, so we try to look at people like that. We try to get people that, you know, it's not just from a financial standpoint, but it makes the experience so much better for the audience, for the attendees, when they know that, hey, I can go and talk to Michael Rooker and hang out, and he can put me in a headlock and, you know, and horse around with me, and that's fun. Those are memories that those people are going to leave Pensacon and have with them for a very long time.
It's very true. Very true. So we're talking about difficulties. What about while the convention is actually happening? And there's obviously a story that I do want to tell from having been one of your moderators last year. But what are some of the difficulties that could happen, you know, standard, let's say, difficulties that could happen during the convention?
Well, for 3 days, it's and hopefully nobody that is attending the convention sees this, but it's basically 3 days of complete and utter chaos. Friday morning, which by the way, Friday we didn't open our doors until 1 p.m. I hit the ground running at 7 in the morning. Did not stop until 1:30 in the morning. And then I was back up again at 7 the next morning. That whole day was a blur. I don't even remember everything that was going on because I literally was running. That's not a metaphor. I mean, I was exhausted by the time everything was finished. There's so many different things that happen because it's a complex machine. And, like I said, hopefully from the attendees' point of view, it's smooth. And everything we've heard, for the most part, kind of indicates that people don't see behind the curtain. They see
right.
the smooth operation out front with the occasional long lines that is unavoidable. Friday this year, we had issues with the will call line. The technology that we had, which was brand new to us, provided by ShowClicks, there were some issues that we were dealing with, and so people were standing in line for a little while, and that line wrapped around the parking lot of the Bay Center. Once we got it kind of the kinks worked out, it was running a little bit smoother. But there were, fortunately it wasn't terribly hot. So and even the day before, which was early past pickup, we had some really long lines jamming the Crown Plaza there, the Grand Ballroom where the past pickup was being held. And we had Dana Snyder, who's a voice actor, who was one of our guests. He came out and was entertaining the crowd. So that was kind of fun. We run into snags every now and then, but it's basically, if you can picture anything going wrong, it will. And we have to be on hand to be able to deal with it. One of my favorite stories is the first year when I was handling transportation. I was down at the airport on Thursday greeting the celebrities who were arriving, and there were storms in Houston that were delaying or rerouting planes, and about a quarter of our flights were coming through Houston, so they got all delayed. Then we had 4 different flights, 4, with mechanical problems. Parker Stevenson was still sitting on the tarmac like 3 hours after he was supposed to leave Los Angeles. And I think there were 2 other celebrities that were on this flight. Then fog dropped in Pensacola, and no flights were able to land. And so we had, like, not even half of our celebrities who were supposed to be here had arrived because of all these plane issues. And so, we were scared that we weren't even going to have a convention that first year, just simply because of difficulties that were completely beyond our control with airplanes. Fortunately, everybody got here, and it went smooth. But, we had, for Walter Koenig, who we're bringing back this year, and he was such a good sport, he had some medical issues going on, and he couldn't talk. And he was just feeling awful, and he had to cancel his panel. But man, he was out there signing autographs, and I give him so much credit. But there were, we were having to smuggle like a smoothie into the Bay Center because their security, would not let outside food in at all. And so we had to smuggle in some cold stuff for him on his throat. That's just one example of things that that happen. There's the occasional behind the scenes meltdown that happens with various people. We had one person the first year that famously went on and had meltdowns at other shows, and he had an incident at ours, and so we had to deal with that. So it's fortunately 99% of our celebrities have been just wonderful, wonderful people, and they've been the least of our problems. So it's just, like I said, it's just a lot of stuff that happens unexpectedly, and we have to be on our toes taking care of it.
So if you have ever attended Pensacon, you gentle listener and viewer, and your experience has been seamless, trust me, it's not. But obviously you're getting the full Pensacon experience, while all these people are taking very good care so that you do not notice that there is a lot of craziness going on behind the scenes. Again, when I was a moderator, we had an issue with a certain party that I will tell to anybody who wants to message me, because it's actually a very funny story, which almost had Steve crying on the Friday night of the first night of the last con. It's a very funny story. But, Steve, Pensacon has been put on. It's made money for the community. It's made, a community that a lot of people like to say that there's not a lot of stuff to do. Now there's a really big thing to do every year.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a lot of conventions in other cities that are getting their shine dulled a little bit. Most recently, Space City Comic-Con. You guys are obviously avoiding that. Do you think it's because that you guys aren't so much about the financial portion of it, you're more about putting on a good show for the city?
Well, okay, there has to be a balance there.
Sure.
We are a business, and we have to look at our business very, very carefully. But the thing is, and I think this is what makes us stand out, and we did this not necessarily knowing how some other conventions operate. And don't get me wrong, there are some great conventions out there. There are also some that may not have the best business practices, and you see that all over the place. I have several friends who have had to come to the rescue, at a couple different events because of poor organization with the promoters. And let's face it, there are some outright crooks that are out there. It's one of these cases of buyer beware, and there's also cases of people that have the best intentions and want to start something, and they see, hey, look, Pensacon did this, or some of these other shows did it. I can do it too, without really understanding what it takes. We approach things from the very beginning basically as, let's treat people how we would want to be treated, both from the fan side and from the celebrity side. For instance, we wanted to make sure that when the celebrities arrived, that there would be a vehicle waiting for them, there would be someone at the airport greeting them, and that their needs would be taken care of immediately. When they arrive at the hotel, they're already checked in. They just have to check with Mike, and he takes care of all the business and paperwork that needs to be done, which is like, a very short process. And they're given their hotel room keys, and they go on up. And I mean, I helped Michelle Nichols. I carried her gear up into her room. So we have people on hand that take care of that. A lot of conventions don't do that. A lot of shows, they tell the celebrities, okay, we start at 10 p.m. at this place. We'll pay for your flight. You figure out how to get there, because we're paying you per diem. You can get your own transportation, just get here. And they have to figure it out. That was news to me after our first year. Like I said, we were just kind of doing things as far as, hey, this makes sense. And it helps us too. I come from a film production background, and there are certain practices when you make a movie that sounds extravagant, but there's a practical reason for it. One is your talent. You provide a driver to go pick them up from their house every morning and bring them to the set. And another is we provide food on set for the cast and crew. Reason is because if you allow an actor who may or may not be flaky to arrive at a certain time, they may not show up. They may just decide, I want to go to the beach today, and just not even make it. If you let your cast and crew leave the set to go to lunch, they're not coming back for 2 hours minimum.
Yeah.
And so that's a practical reason. So from my point of view, that seemed to make sense from a business standpoint, that you get people at the airport, you take them to the hotel, you make sure there's transportation. We have to get them from the hotel to the base center. And so we have transportation right there, so they don't have to think about anything. So it protects us as, as the promoters, that we know where our talent is at any given time. We have a green room that we provided really good food for them. And it was partially, man, we want to take care of our people, but also we want to make sure that they don't disappear on us. So it's kind of a give and take there. But as we get deeper and deeper into this industry, we realize a lot of people don't have that mentality. And we've had agents and actors tell us that they've gone to some shows where in the green room all they have are potato chips.
Wow.
So they have to fend for their food. And it's like, really? That just seems like just common sense that we would provide a decent meal for them.
Well, it's like a thank you service, like thank you for coming,
Sure.
So, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say, and just from the fan side, every one of us that have been on staff at one point or another have attended a lot of conventions, and we've seen really good ones, we've seen some really bad ones, and we continually go to shows like DragonCon or MegaCon or a few others to have that fan experience, so we know, hey man, I went to this panel that was really good, and I saw what these moderators did, and I want to take those best practices and put it to Pensacon, and so our show is of that quality. Or conversely, ooh, wow, they really screwed up on that area. I want to make sure that does not happen at Pensacon. So that's kind of the approach that we take, because the better experience it is for the fans. If we were there, here's what we would want to experience. They're going to keep coming back. If they have a bad experience, they're not going to come back. So
let's get on to some more positive stuff. What should fans look forward to right now that you can talk about for next year's Pensacon 2017 at the Base Center in Pensacola?
Well, we're making a lot of announcements right now, a lot of guest announcements. We just this past week dropped a bombshell where we have an X-Files reunion. We've got William B. Davis, who played the Smoking Man, the main villain. We have Mitch Pileggi, who played Walter Skinner, Mulder and Scully's boss at the FBI. And then we have Brian Thompson, who played the alien bounty hunter that was the shapeshifter that was relentless in chasing after them throughout several seasons. And he's been on a ton of things, too. So that's really cool. I mean, that excites me because I'm a big X-Files fan. And when I heard that when we first started talking about it, it's like, yes, we need to get them. So I'm really happy with that. We also have been announcing several guests from Game of Thrones, which every year we have several Game of Thrones actors. In fact, 2 years running, we had Finn Jones, who is now going to be playing Iron Fist in the Marvel Netflix TV show. Oh, we would love to.
Yeah, sure.
But now that he's like headlining a show, now suddenly the dynamics change. So
right.
It's not quite so easy to nail him down. At least not for what we got him for previously. But as a matter of fact, just 45 minutes ago, we announced Gemma Whalen from Game of Thrones. And of course, we had David Bradley, who not only was in Game of Thrones, but the Harry Potter movies and Broadchurch and The Strain. And, he has connections with Doctor Who. I mean, we've been trying to get him for several years now. And fortunately, some of our Doctor Who guests were at a convention with him in London not too long ago, and basically we're all telling him, you've got to come to Pensacon. And see, this is the thing. The more that we take care of our guests, the more that they're going to spread the word to other people and say, no, come to Pensacon. You're going to love it. They take care of you, and you're going to have a great experience. And that helps our attendees, because when you buy a ticket and now you get to see and meet David Bradley and some of these people and meet the cigarette smoking man and so on. It's because we're doing our jobs behind the scene, or at least we're attempting to. Now, I'm not saying that we're always successful, but we try to have a certain standard, and it just makes the experience even better the following year. So how's that for a sales pitch?
Well, I want to see if you'll add on to it. Are there any other things you guys are working on? Obviously, you can't say details, and I think we all understand why. But is there anything big that you guys are working on that? And this is obviously yes or no, Steve. You don't have to be like, I can't say anything. Big that people should be excited for.
Okay, last year this past year, 2016, we introduced events happening in the back lot. And we had Epic Wrestling out there, and they did a wrestling show. We had a very, very small car show. Some of our cars that we thought were lined up ended up falling through at the last minute. And we had some other things out there, some telescopes, and the Pensacola Mess Hall was out there on Sunday with activities for kids. We had the Society of Creative Anachronism out there doing sword fighting and stuff. Fencing Club was doing demonstrations. So we had a lot of cool things out there. We are working on something which may or may not happen, and I can't even take credit for this. So I'm not going to say anything more about what it may be. But if it comes through, people are going to be really excited. But I'm crossing my fingers. It may end up not materializing. So if it does, I think people are going to be very happy.
And Pensacon actually sponsors events throughout the year leading up to the actual main event. What are some of the sponsored events that are coming up that people should be on the lookout for?
Well, we have an 80s night that's going to be coming up, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact date on me for that. I just say like this on Facebook if you haven't already, and you'll be seeing the announcements on that. But like we just did a well, let's see. Trying to think of
Mystery Science Theater 3000 just happened.
We did that just a week or two ago. We brought Frank Conniff and Trace Ballou, who were guests of ours in 2015. They're both from Mystery Science Theater 3000, and we partnered up with WSRE, the PBS station here in town, and they came down and did a live riffing of a very bad old movie, which is, of course, what they're famous for. And previously, we also did another event with them because WSRE just recently started broadcasting old Doctor Who episodes and MST3K. So we did they did a showing of one of the MST3K episodes, and we were there kind of helping sponsoring that. We've done Harry Potter dances. We've done, Star Wars themed events. We've done fundraisers for Mana. We did an art auction at one point. So these are all things that pop up throughout the year. But the 80s night is the next thing that's kind of major that's coming up, and that's a dance with music themed to the 80s, so which seems to be very popular right now.
The 80s are always popular, Steve. Always.
I lived through the 80s.
So did I, sir. So did I. Steve, I want to thank you for your time talking about Pensacon, talking about some of the things that work on behind the scenes. Steve is also a very famous writer, an award-winning filmmaker.
Sure.
For not only short films, but also we wouldn't be talking. No, I know. I know. But he has also won some awards for his commercial work as well. So check him out at Stephen. That's STEPHENJYs.com. If you're interested in any of his work, he did write a Batman script that almost happened. It's making its rounds again.
Apparently it's being pirated right now. So
I saw that. Congratulations on making it, sir. That's when you know you made it, when people are stealing from you. But of course, you guys can check out Pensacon on Facebook. Pensacon does have its own website at pensacon.com. You can check me out on this channel. You can check me out on geeksgamers.com, where I write opinion articles. You can also check me out, as always, almost every week. We're doing a vacation month, kind of, on Neek the Podcast, on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher. And as always, guys, thank you for joining me. Steve, again, thank you for your time. And
Thank you.
enjoy your week, and we'll get up again.
All right. Thank you.